Shiva, 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 Shambho. Shiva, 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 Shambho. Shiva, 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 Shambho. Shiva, 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 Shambho. Mahadeva Shambho. Mahadeva Shambho. Mahadeva Shambho. Mahadeva Shambho. My journey started before I went to India. My friend told me about India, and he wrote me these lovely hand-drawn maps to some very secret little places in India. And I just absolutely cherished this journal, and I kept it with me all through India. I still have it. I was going to bring it in for you. But you can see the way to get to some of these places was behind a temple, up over a hill, walk about 5 minutes to Kudli Beach to the Shiva's chai shop, which is where I ended up staying. But before that, I went to Arjuna Beach, Goa, and this was one of the first visions I remember having there, this beautiful Indian sunlight that everyone talks about, and these really skinny cows. Also, because we were on the coast, this was a typical fishing boat there. We saw a lot of these fishermen, especially early in the morning, and I rented an Enfield motorcycle and got to see that. This is the famous Saturday market in Goa. It's huge. It's about the size of a football field, and there's just such beautiful things there being sold. Lots of handmade things and stuff from other parts of Asia. And right around Shiva's chai shop was Om Beach, and that's why you could see, this is a same handwritten map, you could see a little bit, you can see Om here, you can see the Om in the way of the coastline. So it actually became quite a famous beach, but back then nobody knew about it. And in the town of Gokarna is where this famous Shivaratri festival happens. It's celebrated on the first full moon in February, and as you can see, there's a lot of people, and this big thing is kind of wheeled through the town, and there's a long story behind it. But look at this, there's just such crazy sights here. People putting fire in their mouths and doing performances that were just so outrageous. It was quite an interesting introduction. So much of my journey was infused with the god Shiva, who's the god who destroys your ignorance. This was Hampi, a beautiful little town where I love these boys. This is the top of the Hanuman temple. It's got something like 333 steps up to it. And you can see all the rubble there. Hampi is made up of little hills of rubble. They say when Hanuman jumped from the Himalayas, which is miles away, his foot hit the top of the mountain and all the piles of rubble fell in Hampi. Across from Hampi, the river was Jagadesh's place, and this is not Jagadesh I'm with, but it was another Sadhu Baba who hung around quite a bit. We're playing gin rummy, and this Jagadesh made leather pouches with 109 secret pockets, so there's a lot of hashish being smoked there. And this is the river that runs through Hampi. This is from the Mangrove Cafe, which I spent quite a lot of time gazing out at this view, and a place of solace for me at that time. I eventually went to the caves of Hampi, where two Italian women were there, and this one day these gypsies came and dressed us up in gypsy clothes, and we had quite a fun time with them. And then I met somebody who would significantly changed my travels in India, and this is Izumi, my Japanese friend, who I met many times around the world spontaneously. We just continued to meet in England and Canada. It was a wonderful experience. I even met her here at the Osho ashram in Pune. I went there to get to the hospital because I was quite sick after being in the caves. But the ashram itself was quite a strange place to be. I felt uncomfortable and ended up spending a lot of time in the gardens there. I eventually took a train up to the Kulu Valley, and here is Manali Valley. When I came back from my travels in India, my aunt had a box of papers of my grandfather's, and the first thing I wrote I read in the box was something he had written. It said, "I know every nook and cranny of the Kulu Valley," and here it is. I just spent 3 months there, and he had spent a couple of years there. So it was quite an extraordinary meeting. I'd never met my grandfather, and he was dead by the time that I got back from India, and when he died when I was very young. So it was quite a beautiful synchronicity to to have experienced that. Here I rented a little rainbow gathering house with some of my friends here. We had a house in the middle of an apple orchard. One day I was there and I saw the guy spraying the trees, and the side of the thing he was spraying was said DDT. That's when I decided that I was going to leave that little hut, but we had a good time there. There was about 7 to 10 of us sharing a 2-story house. I did want to go back to India for years and it didn't happen, but I finally went back in 2018 when I wasn't attached to going anymore. And I went to Rishikesh. It's in the mountains. It's a big yoga place. There's a lot of free satsangs, which are, enlightened people talking about different topics. This is quite a famous temple here, and you can see the Ganges is so beautiful, that green, green water. While you're in India, you always meet lots of wonderful, interesting, fascinating people, and this is somebody I had met on my recent trip there. The Ganges is a holy place, and you often have fire pujas there every sunset, and you take a candle and a flower, and you walk down these stone steps here, and you place your prayers there. And my prayers did come to fruition when I was there in 2018. I was very grateful. This is the town of Rishikesh. All these little shops through these tiny little hallways, and there's always something happening on the Ganges. It's just a lovely town. There's a famous German bakery there. There's lots of German bakeries in India. It's one of their things now. I did eventually go to the middle of India. I went to the Brahmastan, and you have to dress in Indian dress there. So here I am in my sari because you are seeing the pundits chant MAeD, which is the ancient knowledge of India, and so you have to dress accordingly. Here are the beautiful gardens that I got to walk in after meditating. It was a really deeply peaceful time there, and I hope to go back sometime. I did end up going back to Goa, but not to Arjuna Beach. It was a different place on the coastline. It was so different after being in such a conservative part of the country to suddenly be wearing a bikini again, and it felt awkward to me at first. I felt like I was not wearing enough clothes, which is funny because I'm Western and I feel very comfortable in a bikini. And here's this sacred bull. The bulls are kings in India, and here he is waiting in the cafe for some food. Shiva actually rides a white bull called Nandi, and it's considered a very tender animal. So yeah, this was mostly my trip the second time around. I had to leave quite abruptly because my mom became ill. So that is the end of my very few pictures of such a long time here. I want to sing this particular honorable chant to you because I realized when I was writing that it was actually the calling of Boom Shiva. It's a ritual that happens when the holy men when they smoke their chillum, because they believe that their ignorance is being destroyed and they are seeing the true reality of life. And I realized only upon writing some of my writing during this course that it is this call that actually called me to India. When I heard this story from my friend, there was something that in me said, I need to go to this place. I need to see this place. So the god Shiva, the energy that Shiva represents, is significant for me. And I learned a new chant when I went back the second time. And this is it. Bolo, bolo, sat, mela, bolo, Om Namah Shivaya. Bolo, bolo, Sat Mela Bolo Om Namah Shivaya. 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 Bringing the jewel home was one of the most difficult journeys. While I was in India, I felt peace and vitality. I felt really humbled by the intelligence of nature. And when I looked into the eyes of another person, I knew, not intellectually, but I knew that they were just me looking back at myself in a different form. Explaining a sustained experience of wholeness is a very difficult thing. It's like trying to explain what it's like to fall in love to somebody. I was completely vulnerable to what the moment presented. I was constantly learning, forgiving, growing, and it was a very normal state. It was the most normal state of consciousness I've ever experienced. And I would never be prepared for what was to come after that. Teachers, friends, family, all the people that came into my life, they helped to direct me to my own personal work, to shave off the arrogance, to let go of pain of my childhood, and help me polish the pearl of my soul. I hope this gives you some window into what I've been writing about on our journey together. It's been incredibly healing for me, and I'm really surprised by the experience. I really am sorry to miss your stories, and thank you so much for listening. The Sanskrit word for thank you is dhanyavad. So if you'd like, you can bring your palms together and you can repeat after me. Dhanyavad.